Iran program analyst Janatan Sayeh, former Special Operations Officer Garrett Exner, and National Security and Military Analyst Dr. Rebecca Grant. Panel, great to have you with us tonight. I want to begin by playing a little Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. This is interesting because he was on Kudlow, and he's talking again about not just what we're doing, but where we're going from here.
Tonight will be our biggest bombing campaign, and we'll do the most damage to the Iranian missile launchers, the factories that build the missiles, and we are substantially degrading them. Our campaign has been overwhelming.
Well, the campaign's been overwhelming, Dr. Grant, and I imagine it's only going to get more overwhelming from here.
Kevin, here come the big bombs, the JDAMs, the small diameter bomb. These are 2,000-pound down to 500-pound bombs. We have really big supplies of them, and you'll see our B-2s, B-1s, B-52s, the Super Hornets off the carriers, land-based fighters, all hitting multiple aim points per mission. It's a big target set, and it's got to be completely wiped out. That begins now.
Let me follow up on that. I know you had the op-ed. I just want to share this. This is from FoxNews.com. Here come the big bombs as U.S. escalates strikes on Iran's huge military arsenal. The subheadline is what I really enjoyed, especially because it's the clarity that really helps everybody get the context. The United States is not even close to running out of bombs for Operation Epic Fury. I've been watching and tracking what the Iranians have been doing with respect to their drones and their airstrikes, and they seem to be dwindling by the hour. Is that your perspective? Does that surprise you?
Yes, it should be dropping down. We've got some fabulous counter-drone systems that can hit swarms of drones.
Yeah.
And remember, most of our bombs are bombs. You put a kit on them. The armorists put those together, put them on the plane, pull the pin, and off you go. We're in really good shape for those type of munitions. We're going to get more of the special munitions that the Navy uses and others. We're going to stock up on that. But we have all that we need to carry out Operation Epic Fury.
Jonathan, I saw you nodding in agreement there, because what we're looking at now is not just an aggressive posture by the United States, but also one that seems determined to completely decapitate the capacity of the regime in Tehran.
Well, it certainly is. And looking at what the president really noted towards the end is, one is unconditional surrender. But should we not get there, it's really about eliminating any personnel or weapons that they're fighting with. Now, in that context, we have to keep in mind the attacks have been mostly targeting the infrastructure, which means there's still plenty of these IRGC forces that are increasingly pivoting towards internal repression. They're embedding themselves in civilian infrastructure. So as this war enters a new phase, it's really crucial for us to really leverage the momentum on the ground, the anti-regime wave that has not stopped by the average Iranian. So it really comes down to how we're going to communicate to them for them to really define their own destiny as this war enters its new chapter.
Excellent perspective. Let me follow up, if I may. This is Mike Waltz, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, talking about this idea that the regime and sort of buckshotting airstrikes all over the region is not good for them. It's obviously not good for our partners in the region. Listen to him, get your reaction on the other side.
It is backfiring on Iran. I have met with nearly every ambassador in the Gulf just in the last 48 hours. I've never seen them more unified. I've never seen them more outraged. I've talked to them quite a bit. You know, their population is under attack. And I think you're going to see that unity get more and more solid.
I think that unity will get more and more solid. Your perspective on that?
Tehran's strategy for the longest time has been to internationalize the war. They've routinely threatened that any attack on Iran would not be limited to its borders, and now we're seeing that play out. But that said, it is not really operating how they thought it would. Some of these Persian Gulf countries, I'm thinking about Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and even Turkey, have tried to mediate between Tehran and Washington. They've tried to deter an attack, but all of a sudden they find themselves targets of these Iranian strikes. We have to remember, this is still an ideological regime. Part of the reason we're seeing some of this irrational behavior coming from these rogue elements that do not even have a command structure anymore goes back to the theocracy and the inherent nature of the Islamic Republic, which is what makes it so really challenging to deal with, which is why it's harder for us to get defections, because some of these guys are probably going to fight to the death because they do not live in the same paradigm as you and me. They're thinking in the jihadi mindset right now.
Garrett, you want in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we're seeing is leadership on the world stage. These countries are coalescing behind the good leader that we're seeing here in America, and they're recognizing the evil that exists in Iran. And they're eager to get on board because they know how things are going to end up in the end.
It's interesting because I think going into an exercise like this, a conflict like this, people do wonder, what's the big picture? What's this really all about? And there are a number of layers here, but I think it begins and ends for some of us, dating back to 1979, with trying to eliminate a malign influence in the region that has been targeting not just Americans abroad, but even this country directly.
President after president have tried to deal with the Ayatollahs and what they've done in that region. They've tried to establish peace in the Middle East for longer than I've been alive. And the malign actor that sits in Tehran has kind of been the center of most of that terrorism in the region. Finally, we have a president who's going to take a stand and get the job done. And maybe within a few months from now, maybe in a few years down the road, we'll see peace in that region if this regime is gone.
Let me get you all the way in on this. I've got some more sound, but at first I want to ask you all about this. I think it's crucial that the people of Iran ultimately come out of this bombing campaign, this conflict with the regime, with hope and with optimism and hopefully with strong leadership that they can help turn away from this theocracy, if you will, and enter the community of nations. Do you think that happens after a conflict like this?
It certainly does. So what we've seen so far from the average Iranian is that they do not see this as an attack against their identity. It is an attack against their oppressors, the Islamic Republic. And we've seen the momentum, looking at a month ago when about millions of Iranians took to the streets against this regime, and they've pleaded for American intervention in a humanitarian sense, and they finally got it. So when you look at videos emerging out of Iran, as fighter jets are flying over Tehran, Iranians are cheering because, again, they do see this as aid. Of course, they're standing by for further instructions. As the president and the crown prince, as the opposition leader has noted, it is not time to come out, but they are waiting, standing down and standing by for the next wave.
Dr. Grant.
Remember, Iran's economy has been terrible, and there is a great prospect of sanctions relief for the right leadership in Iran. They've also got to account for all that enriched nuclear fuel and ship it out of the country, then sanctions relief, and really a new day can happen with the right leadership.
Garrett?
I think people are always going to choose freedom over tyranny, and finally we have a president that's going to deliver freedom for these people. They want it. They have a energy-rich country, and they should be living off the riches of what they have there, not being oppressed.
Let me follow up with you there, Garrett, because I read a report today that suggested, it was an NBC News report that suggested the president has a bit of an interest, if you will, in perhaps making moves on the ground with American forces. That would seem a bridge too far for many Americans who were promised that this administration would not get us involved in more so-called forever wars. I think they've been very strategic and careful about this, but there may come a point where they need actors to actually be on the ground. Do you think that happens? And if so, how long might that take?
I think to get enough forces on the ground to go into a country of 90 million, it would take months.
Right.
If you're looking at OIF, Operation Iraqi Freedom, about 250,000 troops on the ground before the invasion of Iraq. If you go back further to Gulf War, it's about 500,000, 500,000 total coalition. That takes 6 months or so to get in line. So I think there's a long way to go before we start looking at troops on the ground going into Iraq. There's also a lot of regional dynamics there with Kurds and others that could be used as a force before we look to American troops to do this. President Trump's a negotiator. He's taken a hard stance, and I think he's going to get the job done.
I think you nailed it. I think a lot of we've been doing some reading about the Iranian Kurds who've been saying, hey, listen, we want to get in there, the Iraqi Kurds as well, who want to. Some people have suggested Iraqi. I think it's Iranian Kurds who want to get in there and help protect their homeland and obviously make a big difference for the people so that they can stand up and defend themselves against the regime. We'll see how that all plays out. Panel, you all have been terrific as always. Thank you so much. Looking forward to having you all back
Thank you.
again. Thank you.